Hey everyone, I hope you can hear me. Ivan LaCroix here from Lake Country Manufacturing, and I'm here to speak to you about HDO and SDO pads. Now I know the live is only supposed to start in a couple of minutes, but I want to get the technicalities out of the way and make sure everything is working. So when people do tune in at 7 o'clock, we're great. David Bapty, can we hear me all right? Thumbs up or something like that. We have Parker Richards, Ryan Cornelius watching. Thank you for joining me, gentlemen. Okay, so the sound is good. Thank you, Ryan. I'm doing great. We're still in Arizona. We're about to embark on our journey back to Quebec in a couple days. But before that, I had to drive out to somewhere that has cell phone reception. So where we've been held up against the coronavirus and working on our bus for the last little while, let's just say that the cell phone signal is less than optimal. Therefore, I had to drive to Laughlin, Nevada to find cell phone signal. Yes, Parker, we do need that to go into production. It's coming soon. The crosshatch wool, which is part of the Udos line. So that is coming soon. Anyway, Marcin from Poland, great. So I'm sitting in my Jeep. It's 39 degrees Celsius outside. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, a little over 100, I believe. So yes, the Jeep is running and I'm keeping cool. But why are we here today? Well, first of all, if you have any questions, put them down. I'll try to get to them as we go. I can see your questions showing up on the screen. So if you have questions or comments, please always feel free to leave them with us. What we're here to talk about today is two series of pads. One is the HDO series of pads, there we go, and the other one is the SDO series of pads. So the two are very similar but extremely different in concept. First of all, we'll start with the SDO pads. So standard duty orbital. The SDO pad is great if you're using a short stroke DA or even a forced rotation DA. Yes, we're all excited about the Udos. And these pads can be used on the Rupes machine, definitely, Ryan. And so will the Udos pads. They will be universal, we'll put it that way. But getting back to this. So the SDO pad, standard duty orbital, center hole for cooling. They're 7/8 of an inch thick. They're available in different foams. We have the blue foam, we have the orange foam. The reason for the standard duty orbital, again, is a short stroke DA or forced rotation DA. They work great on it. Both the forced rotation and short stroke, like a Porter cable, like FX 3401, they have a relatively short stroke. Between 8 and, we'll say 12 millimeters is a good range for this pad. Now this pad can also be used on a long stroke DA, but if you're using a long stroke DA, you'll get much better performance from the HDO pad. Now the HDO pad can be used on the short stroke machines, but it might be a little too much pad, we'll put it that way. Where the HDO really differs from a single foam pad. So if we look at the SDO, it's a single foam. The HDO has this interface, so the gray interface, a much stiffer foam. What that does for you is, if we eliminate the rotational part of the pad, so on a dual action machine, one of the actions is rotation. The other action is the side-to-side movement, so the orbital action of it. When you have a long stroke machine, so 15 to 21, we parle toujours là. Always there for everyone. It's what I enjoy doing. So, like I said, I haven't worked a day in 35 years, and I'm not about to. The HDO pad, when we eliminate the rotation and just talk about the side to side. So on a 21 millimeter or a 15 millimeter stroke machine, that pad or that movement of the machine puts a lot of stress on these pads. And if you can imagine a pad like this, if you look at the thickness of the foam, if we compare just the thickness of the foam between the two, The orange pad has a lot more of the single density foam. The HDO, by having this denser foam in the center, still allows pad flexibility, allows movement in the pad, but reduces the instance of the pad creeping or the pad moving. And that movement happens when we have the oscillation. So that 21 millimeter oscillation, we'll use a 21 millimeter as an example. So as it's moving from side to side, your movement, some of it is lost in the pad. So a 21 millimeter machine, if you have a single density foam this thick, you're going to lose some of that movement to the foam itself. With the interface built into the HDO, we're maximizing the amount of movement you're getting on the surface of the paint and not necessarily on the, the machine movement is transferred also to the surface. This also aids in cooling, aids and acts as a barrier against heat transfer from the machine to the pad or from the pad to the machine. So there's a lot of advantages to the HDO pad. The other one is the shape. So if I bring this up a little closer to the camera, where we go? There we go. So you'll notice the shape here curves in a little bit. Now, a lot of pads on the market, they're just on an angle and they finish at a point. That point is common. We see it a lot on a lot of pads. And by the way, even the SDO has that curve in. What that curve in is because of, if you put polish on the face of your pad, start polishing with it, you'll notice that there's a little edge when you have a pad that is just a single angle. You'll notice there's a little edge that may not have compound or polish on it. That little area is dry polishing. And when you get that dry polishing, you can get micro marring or an increased incidence of micro marring. There are ways around that. One of them is priming your pad. The other one is just using a pad that shape where that dry buffing can happen is now eliminated. So when you apply pressure to the pad, let's see if we can demonstrate it here. So when we apply pressure to the pad, the backing plate area and the pad face are similar, and that pressure is going to stay the same. When you have one that flares out, and there's some on the market that the angle is really exaggerated, when you put pressure on it, what happens is your backing plate, let's say it's a 5-inch diameter backing plate, that 5-inch diameter puts pressure on, your pad might be 6-inch diameter on the face. That 6-inch diameter on the face allows it or forces the edges actually to creep up a little bit or rotate up. So you're putting pressure in the center of the pad where you have your backing plate over top, but the edges of the pad curl up. When they curl up, again, you have instances of dry buffing, of micro marring, things like that. So this shape helps reduce micro marring. That's one of the main reasons it's engineered in this shape. The SDO pad, you'll notice it's got a little less of it simply because, the HDO pad has a little less of that simply because we have this interface foam that now is spreading the pressure a little further. By spreading the pressure a little further, we can spread the face of the pad a little further as well and still maintain that complete coverage of the compound and polish. Other than that, they're great tools. The blue pad is one of the more popular pads. It's a very unique foam. It is great as a one-step pad. That is its most popular use. If you're going to have one pad, this is the one to have as far as I'm concerned in the HDO line. In the SDO, I prefer the orange foam. But again, those are my preferences. One of the nice things about foam manufacturing and pad manufacturing is there's no right answer and there's no wrong answer. So it's whatever you prefer to use. There are some people that prefer the orange HDO pad. That is their go-to. That is the one they're going to use for just about everything. And that's great. Again, what works for you is what works for you. What works for me is what works for me. What works for me may not be right for you. what products you use, what machine you use, what pressure you apply, what speed you're using it at, what your ambient temperature, what your ambient humidity is, all are contributing factors to what pads you will like versus what pads someone else will like. That's why there's such a variety of pads on the market. People ask, well, if these pads are so good, why do you make other pads? Well, the reason Lake Country makes so many different pads is user experience. Everybody has a different user experience with different pads. Again, I like the blue HDO, one of my favorite pads. But the blue HDO, for some people, isn't a great thing. Marcin, yes, the new micro wool, it's not more aggressive, it's similarly aggressive. So it's a very similar pad in terms of cut than what you're used to with the purple wool with the 1/4 inch pad. With the 1/4 inch foam with the 3/8 interface. So very similar pad in terms of cut. The micro wool with the cross hatching on it from the Udos line does have the advantage though of even better surface cooling. And the cooler the surface, the faster the cut, and the better it is all around. Any other questions? Yes, Patrick, bonjour. Patrick Mooney, who, if you've ever spoken to him, from Veteran Detail in something Fork, Utah, he's close to Salt Lake City. Anyways, Patrick has a very lovely accent that is anywhere far removed from French, but telling me bonjour in French. So thank you very much. So yes, where was I going? Oh yeah, so the HDO, SDO pad comparison. Both great pads, both a lot of fun to use. The SDO is a little less expensive as well. So if you're dealing with employees, if you're dealing with, a vehicle that you're going to be damaging, the American fork. Thank you, Patrick. I knew it was something fork, but I didn't know which fork it was. Was it the dessert fork? Is it the American fork? Whatever. But the SDO pads, they're a very popular pad, great pad, good durability on them, and a little less expensive than the HDO pad. So again, if you're dealing with employees, if you're dealing with an abused vehicle, that you're not sure your pad's gonna survive the vehicle, this is a great alternative to the HDO pads that we have here. Now, in the HDO and SDO line, there's also microfiber. And let me take it out of the bag here. So this is the HDO microfiber. And this is the heavy cutting microfiber. So you'll notice, once again, we have that similar angle, but it's a little thinner. Yeah, Wesley. Cheap and cost per use are two different things. The HDO pad generally does last a little longer. So someone who maintains their pads properly, doesn't overload them with product, doesn't overheat their pads, you actually get a longer life out of the HDO pad. So in reality, the HDO pad costs you less, but the initial purchase price of the SDO pad is less than the HDO pad. So cost per use, they end up being close to the same, but yes, Hans. We got people from all over the world here. This is great. So Hans, yes, the micro pads are great. I'm not people who have followed me for years know that I'm not a huge fan of microfiber pads, but I have used this pad. I do like it. The advantages I find with this, first of all, we've got the center cooling hole, so that helps keep the temperatures down. But also, we've got a great cut with this pad, and a nice finish as well. Now, for finish, the orange foam is a little softer. It's finishing. Yeah, good point, Wesley. Buy once, cry once. And the pad washer, definitely. The pad washer, so the System 3000 from Lake Country, definitely will extend the life of any pad greatly. Doesn't matter whether it's a Lake Country pad, other brand of pad, doesn't matter if it's a microfiber, a wool, or a foam pad. Keeping your pads clean, keeping them clean as you're polishing. So not just when you're done the job, not just as you're accumulating pads. But if you can keep your pad clean, why do I not like I'll get to that question in a second, Matthew. If you can keep your pads clean as you're doing the job, you're going to use less pads. You're not ripping it on and off the Velcro all the time. So it's a lot more efficient way of doing things. As for me not liking microfiber, as I mentioned before, there are pads for everyone, and there's different likes. I prefer wool over microfiber if I'm going to cut. I find wool runs a little cooler. The disadvantage I find with microfiber is just heat generation. That is the only real downfall to a microfiber pad. Let's get my first day with the new mouth. The disadvantage for me personally with a microfiber pad is heat generation. Marcin, you like the blue SDO, HDO, orange and waffle pad. Yeah. So yellow CCS also similar. What's that? Let's see more. Please make a little faster live time. Yeah, it's 1:12 in the morning for you. Unfortunately, the bigger part of our market is in North America, so that's where we're trying to balance it out. But we will take that in consideration. The other thing, Marcin, you don't have to watch it live. I know it's very late for you and anybody in Europe. It's later in the day, but these are going to be released both on YouTube and on the Lake Country channel, so you can watch them at a later date. And as you know, if you ask a question, I will answer, even if it's after. I don't, once the live is over, if you answer questions, so if you're watching this at a deferred time, please feel free to ask your questions. I'll be happy to answer them. Yes, Hans, it's 1 a.m. for you as well. You're in Sweden, I believe? I'm not sure, but anyways, I know you're in Scandinavia. Jason Brennan, who is our East Coast rep for Lake Country Manufacturing, is watching with us. So Jason can add any tidbits as well if he'd like to. So HDO, perfect sandwich here. Not too tasty, but great products. Any other questions, people? We're only 15 minutes in. It's supposed to be a half-hour live. Netherlands. Okay, thank you, Lahans. Beautiful country. I was there a couple years ago. Europe in general is a nice place, but just saying. And Poland as well, when I visited there. Great people, great country. The detailers... No, I know I was in Amsterdam, but I also went to the Netherlands. So, I've traveled a fair bit. I didn't do any classes in the Netherlands, but I went to the Netherlands. That was a personal trip, not a business trip. One of the things I noticed when I was in Europe, and this is something the North American detailers can reflect on and think about, they're a lot closer. They help each other out a little more. There's less of a competitive spirit than they want to help each other. We'll put it that way, as opposed to the guy down the street, he's no good. Wesley, favorite pad polish combo for an enhancement polish. I like, in terms of pads, I'm a waffle pad fan. If we could make a waffle HDO, I'd be really happy with that. But nonetheless, I know David Patterson has that on his desk. In this line, again, the blue HDO is a great one-step pad. In terms of polish, there's a lot of polishes out there. That really comes down to personal preference. There's no room in our market anymore for bad products. 10, 15 years ago or 20 years ago, we would buy products off a truck. It's whatever the truck delivered to us that we used. We didn't have the internet to go see what was available, what isn't available. And at that same time, we were sort of locked in. There weren't a lot of product manufacturers. There was a lot of different things going on. with the advent of the internet, yes, Marson, put them on order. Maybe they'll make them for us. With the advent of the internet, there is a lot of as far as selling. Sorry, I'll get to your question in a second, John. With the advent of the internet, people have been able to give reviews of products, and bad products have simply gone away. So because of that, there are a lot of great products. Oh, there we go. Someone did answer. Yes, we do sell in Ireland. Great to know. Maybe Gene, if you could put the name of the distributor, that would be even better, or a link if we have it. So with the advent of the internet, obviously detailers are communicating a lot more, which is great. And with that communication, bad products have gone away. So my favorite one-step product, put it this way, the one you have in your hands. You don't need to go out and buy another one to try another one. Use what you have. It's a great system, and it works. I've been to many detailing shops where there is a shelf or a cabinet or a room full of products that they bought because someone suggested it on the internet. They tried it on one or two cars, and it just sat on that shelf from there forward because they continued using what they had and what they're used to using and working with. So again, it comes down to personal preference. And glad to see that we have our UK distributors on board. So yeah, the Lake Country is available really throughout the world. Sometimes you have to look for it. If you go to our website, lakecountrymfg.com, you'll be able to find a list of distributors worldwide. So they are there. In some countries they're a smaller distributor, in some countries they're huge. So and they're able to order what you want and what you need from our vast catalog. Speaking of our vast catalog, if you go on our website, you can download the whole catalog. It's available as a flip book, so you don't have to download it. You can see it on the website, or you can download it to have it for that. And I'll put a link in this, or maybe Gene can put a link in for people to have the catalog, a direct link to go to the catalog. The catalog is a great resource. It has a lot of things in it. And at the back of the catalog, there's an aggressivity chart of how the pads compare to each other in terms of aggressivity. Also, on each page, you will notice there is the recommended tooling for each pad, the recommended, is it a rotary pad, is it a long stroke DA, a short stroke DA, or forced rotation? And when the UDOS comes out, well, every pad fits the UDOS because it's a rotary, it's a short stroke DA, it's a long stroke DA, and it's all those combined into one tool. And the UDOS is coming because of the COVID-19 virus. There has been some slowdown in sourcing some parts because the UDOS is manufactured from globally sourced parts, so from all over the world. And thank you, the link to the catalog is now up, so you'll be able to go to that link, save it in your favorites. You can refer to it. It's a really well written piece of material. Yes, it is a marketing piece, obviously, but it is also a great resource for finding what you need in terms of pads, how different pads relate to each other, and you'll see just exactly the wide variety of pads that are available from Lake Country Manufacturing. There's some pads in there that you may have never seen before, even thought or knew existed. Syncing up colors with aggressivity across the line. Yeah, unfortunately, that is a little difficult to do. Yes, and you have noticed that white is one of the interesting ones. In some tools or in some pad lines, white is more aggressive than green. In other pad lines, green is more aggressive than white. And that simply comes down to actually the tool itself and the action of the tool. So on different tools, different pads or different foams react differently. So it would be nice to have a universal color chart, but unfortunately that isn't possible at this time. The foams when we say an orange foam, well, the orange foam that's used across the Lake Country line is not necessarily the same in every pad line. Same thing with the white foam. Same thing with the the blue foams. They vary from one pad line to the next. So it is not necessarily because it's an orange pad all the same. That's why the aggressivity changes from one pad line to the next. And in testing, because we test a lot of, everything we do is tested. So they, sorry, lost my train of thought here. Since Lake Country tests everything with every machine, that's why that aggressivity chart varies from one color to the next. With detailing products, can get European products. Yeah, it is a little difficult to find some U.S. products in the UK. Similarly, a lot of the European products are not available in the U.S. So, it's up to each manufacturer to decide whether they want to market in different countries, especially with a lot of the chemicals. Shipping those chemicals is a little difficult, and there are a lot of other considerations in terms of legalities, and SDS. Different countries allow different products, some don't, some do, so it's very different. The tufted foam pads, so they used to be a staple in the rotary world. People have gone away from them. We still manufacture them. There's still some people that buy them. I like them myself. The advantage of them is they keep the surface cooler, just like a wool pad does on a rotary. If you take a wool pad, a standard, 7/8 or 1.25 inch thick 4-ply wool pad on a rotary, people think that creates a lot of heat. In reality, it doesn't. It's moving a lot of air, and that air that it's moving keeps it cooler, keeps the surface cooler. The cooler your surface temperature, the faster your cut. So that is one of the advantages of the tufted foam pads. It's a really interesting pad to work with. It is a closed cell foam, which is a little different. Most of the foams at Lake Country are open cell foams, but the tufted foam pads are an open cell foam. But they're a great pad. They're a lot of fun to work with. They have a great user feel to them, a great user control. You're welcome, Matthew. My pleasure. And Simon Dubreuil, si vous avez des questions en français, posez des questions en français. Je suis capable de répondre dans les deux langues. So I just said, if you have any questions in French, by all means, write them down, and I can reply in both languages. Not a problem for me. So, and if you're watching in French or in English, as I said, put the questions down, and we can answer according to the language that the question is written in. On peut répondre, je vais répondre aux questions selon la langue qui sont écrites. Donc c'est plus simple comme ça pour tout le monde. We're about to wrap up this live. It's scheduled to be half an hour long. We're actually a little over half an hour long because I started early just to make sure technically everything was working. But again, thank you for watching. This is something we're going to be doing every week. So every week we're going to be different pads, different things. This live, even though it is live, will be posted to the Lake Country Manufacturing Facebook page, also the Facebook group. So if you're not a member of the Lake Country Facebook group, you can find a link to it here on the page. Also, it'll be going up on YouTube, on the Lake Country Manufacturing YouTube page, so you'll be able to find it there. And as I mentioned before, if you have any questions at any point, you can always reach out to me. It's ivan.lacroix@lakecountrymfg.com, or you can contact sales at lakecountrymfg.com if that's easier to remember. The other thing is, if you ask questions in the group, and if you ask questions on this live feed, whether it be on the YouTube posting of this, or the in the group, or everywhere, don't worry, I'll be there and I will answer it. So once again, thank you very much. And Marcin, thanks for tuning in, even though it's very late in the morning for you, or very early in the morning for you, late at night, depending on how you want to look at it. And Hans as well. But thank you for watching. We'll be back same time, same pad time, same pad channel next week. Those of you that are old enough to remember that reference, you'll get it. So it'll be 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next Thursday on the Lake Country Manufacturing web page or Facebook page. And next week, pad cleaning tips and techniques, one of my favorite subjects. So we'll be talking all about that, and hopefully I'll be not sitting in a Jeep, but sitting somewhere that I didn't have to drive to get internet service to. So thanks a lot, everyone. Have a great evening.